All right, so we calling this show Real Talk with Todd Billy. Charles Oaksby, also known as Todd Millionaire. The show is also called the Millionaire Podcast. We interview successful African-American business owners and investors because we believe that business and investing are the true keys to financial success and generational wealth. Today we have the brother Alex Turner, who came highly recommended from Bruce Hill. So shout out to Bruce Hill, New Skills, New You, always down to help a brother out. And he did that because I came out here on the spur of the moment. I was like, I got to get some podcast guests. Hook me up. And so you guys are in for a treat. I heard a little bit about what you do in the lobby, but I'm looking at your Instagram, and it sounds a little bit different. Because
so what did you hear?
You said something about you have a family company.
So my family and I, we have a family company where we help business owners and families, for one, get funded for the business and then learn how to scale, grow, and automate it through virtual assistants and other systems.
Okay.
We've been like a financial company, like a financial literacy company for a while, but we do it as a family business. So we've been teaching like other families and business owners how to do it. But my passion has always been sports.
Right.
So the one thing that I tried to do was, all right, when NIL came out, and those who don't know what NIL is, it stands for name, image, and likeness, right? So basically being able to get paid off your name. I basically took what we do as a family company and was like, all right, how can I apply it to college athletes now? They're starting to make this money. How can I teach them the financial literacy aspects, help them, for one, start a business, grow a business based off their brand?
Yeah.
And then that's kind of how I pivoted.
Yeah, because NIL essentially kind of makes you a business.
Exactly.
Now you got to source these deals. You also got to manage the deals. You got to keep up with to make sure that you're in line with the contract and things like that. That's interesting. So let's talk about the first question I always like to ask people is who are they, where are they from, and what was like life like growing up? So can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm Alexander Turner. I'm actually from Atlanta. I was born like right outside the city, like 15 minutes, but I always went to school like in Atlanta, so Atlanta really raised me. How was my life growing up? It was actually amazing. Like, really can't really complain as far as, all kids kind of go through, trials and tribulations, but I was truly raised by a village who allowed me to see all aspects of life. Kind of growing up with a diverse mind and an open mind, which kind of led me to where I am today, because throughout childhood, I was always kind of taught, like, for one, the worst answer you can get is no. That's what my dad always told me. So that always kind of pushed me to do more in life and just kind of like, don't be afraid to, take that risk. And then just my family making sure that I was putting things to open my mind. Like, I didn't go to a regular, like public school. I went to private school and charter school for the most part of my life. So it kind of opened me up to, for one, more being tied in with the culture, just like with my people, and understanding some of the struggles that some other people go through, because thankfully I was well off. Like, I wouldn't say well off, but I wasn't like struggling like how some families could be. So it allowed me to, just be in that environment to where, okay, although I thought life was like this, there are other people who don't have the same opportunities and advantages that I may have. So it just kind of pushed me to like, all right, what can I do with the talents that I have to help others? So, yeah, that's who I am, that's where I'm from.
What did your parents do?
So when I was a kid, my dad owned his own photography business, and this is, way before the digital age. So, when cameras, like if you wanted anything done, because this was before phones had cameras and all that, you go to a photographer. So he had his own photography business, both for like events, weddings, things like that. It was very successful. And then my mother, she ran a pharmaceutical delivery company for like the entire like southeastern region in a sense. So all the
big money in that, man.
Yeah, all the CVS's, all the Walgreens, all the small mom and pop like pharmacy stores. She ran the drugs to those stores. She would get them in from the big companies and then disperse them to all the small stores.
So your parents were entrepreneurial. Did you ever have a job?
Yes, in life I have.
Yeah.
But as I had a job, I never enjoyed taking direction from people, you know what I'm saying? Like a manager or supervisor. Yeah. I always liked a mentor, like, being able to learn from someone. But while I was in those jobs that I did have, it never felt right.
Yeah. So what was your first business? What did that look like?
I actually, I had a jewelry business. That was my first personal business. I always just like jewelry in general, just as far as like the copper and stuff like that. So I started off with the copper business, and then I went to like the beaded businesses. And I don't know if people remember Shambhala bracelets, but those are like they kind of look like braided bracelets, but they had like jeweled pieces in them. It's kind of hard to describe if you don't know off rip.
Yeah, I don't know.
But no, I used to basically just make jewelry my mom would have me going out to like barbershops and hair salons and stuff like that, just kind of like hustling. She's like, all right, if you want to do this business, you're going to have to get out here and market yourself. So I started off with a jewelry business. It was called Cobalt Jewelry. And then from there, I transitioned into the second official business that I have, which is Sports Talk with Turner, which is like the parent company for some of the other things I do.
Sports Talk with Turner.
Yes.
Is it like a media company?
It started off that way, yes, but now it's just going to go into like like that parent company for the other companies that I have. So I have an NFT business where I help just business owners in general understand what NFTs are, how to build them. Like I have an NFT ebook, and I also tie that into like my college athlete community, helping them build a community with NFTs and building one for themselves, and that kind of ties into the NIL stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I help college athletes as far as like branding themselves with the NIL. So those are the businesses that I have now besides my family company.
So how is the NIL business going? Because I know that it's just kind of come out. Mm-hmm. Does NIL extend to high school? It extends pretty far, right?
So there are certain states that do allow NIL, like in high school, but it's still NIL got passed June 30th. And it went into effect July 1st of 2021. So it's still like just over a year old. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things are still changing. There are some high schools that there's some states that allow the high schoolers to do it, but it's still very stringent on the laws. Like you would still have to go into certain cities and counties and see their regulations. So it's very strict on that end. But when it comes to the college level, it does open up a bit. You still have to go to certain states and school laws and abide by those. But it's really like NIL is kind of like a feast right now. Everybody's getting what they can because it's so new. The laws are very gray as far as like certain specifications, right? So you got some people who can, because of how big they are in their sport, they can get, $2-3 million of valuation from NIL from all their sponsorships. And then some people, they're just getting the smaller ones, which is still good when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Which is
maybe better than doing it for free.
Exactly, which is like the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 type dollar.
And it's
deals.
Also better than taking money and getting in trouble for it too.
And then losing eligibility,
right?
Like what happened to Jameis Wiseman. He's a Golden State Warrior center now. He got drafted number 1 maybe a year or two ago. But when he was in Memphis, this was before NIL. I can't remember exactly the specifications, but basically they caught him in violation of pay for play. So, yeah.
What's interesting is I was watching this YouTube video, and there is this guy, and he went to this high school, and he was interviewing the top athlete in the state of California. And he told him, he was like, every touchdown you get, I'm gonna give you $100. Every this, I'm gonna give you $100. But I guess it was like a family member or something. Mm-hmm. And I never realized that people, even at the high school level, kind of get paid for performance, which would incentivize them to do better, which now they get to a better college and things like that. Have you ever seen that?
I've personally never seen that, but I'm not surprised simply because I see a lot of parents, like you said, it was probably a family member. I've seen a lot of parents and family members just in general who want their child, if they see that the child or somebody in their family has a gift in that sport, they try to push them to do more just because it's like maybe they might not see it. So like, yo, you can make a career out of this. So why not incentivize them early?
Right. It makes
if it's ethical and
right. It's not like some random dude with a briefcase or something. What are some tips you would give to kids who want to get an NIL deal?
The biggest tip I can give any college athlete when trying to get an NIL is build your brand. Like that's the biggest thing you got to do, right? You don't have to be the top 1% of either notoriety or skill in order to get an NIL deal, right? You just need to have a formidable brand that companies want to pair with, right?
True.
Even if you have, say, 2,000 followers, 3,500 followers, like you don't have that 10K follower, arena yet. You're still eligible to get an NIL deal as long as you have a brand to where, say, if I'm a big company and I look at your page, right? Yeah, you might have 2,000 followers, but you still have a lot of engagement, right? You still got a lot of people that pay attention. So I'm like, okay, this seems like a good brand I might want to pair with. But if you don't show who you are in your branding, right, then the company would never know if you're somebody that they actually want to give an NIL deal to.
Yeah. When you say build your brand, what do you mean by that, and how does that look for them?
So the best way to build your brand now, especially for the realm that they're in, is just building it on social media. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, even LinkedIn, going on maybe Clubhouse, any of these major social media platforms, simply because that's the best form of like
direct
notoriety
type stuff.
Exactly.
You don't got to go through anybody, have to ask for permission. You can just post whatever you want to post.
Exactly. And be your authentic self in the same sense, rather than thinking you have to pose to be somebody else, right? Like, so you just use these platforms, right? And use the tools that are already provided for you on those platforms, like Reels. Reels push more than anything right now.
Yeah.
So just make a video, being you, whether it's a highlight tape, whether it's, say you got a cool hobby on the side, right? It doesn't even have to necessarily tie into what you do in sports.
Yeah.
Just be you and post it online.
Yeah.
Be consistent in that same aspect, and then eventually people will start recognizing what you do.
Yeah.
It'll go viral, then you'll get to that influential level, and the next thing you know, you're bringing in endorsement deals from all types of places.
How often do you think they should be posting?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
It's funny because I watch, you can kind of see these guys go from like high school prospect to getting picked up by a school.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't work out. But if they had a brand, it still works out.
Exactly.
And so I know a lot of guys who, like, their only exit strategy was going to the pros. And they might have been great in high school, but they didn't go to the pros. But they also didn't build a brand. And so you have this time in your life when you can kind of leverage your celebrity of being at a top-tier school.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you don't go pro, you still leverage what you had, built your following, and now you can monetize that.
Exactly.
But if you never built it while you were there, you're kind of passing up that experience, and now you're just some guy who we talk about who used to play at SC.
Exactly. And that's what I try to get athletes to realize. I'm like, I'm not just trying to help you build a brand online so you can get money in college. No, I'm trying to help you build a brand so whether you go pro, whether you don't go pro, whether you can get drafted, but you decide that's not what you want to do, it's like, yo, you've built a brand that stands on its own. It doesn't have to be on the back of your playing career, right? It's on the back of who you are as a person.
Right.
Now, if that involves football, basketball, baseball, golf, whatever your sport is in that moment, yeah, that can still be a part of your brand. But as you transition out of that, so can your brand. And your audience is so loyal to you that they'll follow you wherever you go.
Yeah, exactly. What does a successful NIL look like? Like, what should they be looking for? It's kind of an abstract question.
So it is, but it's okay. I'll give a couple guidelines that you want to look for, right? So for one, there are many different types of NIL deals. It doesn't have to do with just endorsements. So I want to say that, right? You can get NIL deals from hosting your own camps, creating products online for yourself. So say you're just a regular business owner and you create a physical product or a digital product. That's a form of NIL. Like NIL is any form of marketing or any form of way in which you can get paid just off your name, image, and likeness as who you are, right? So that could be signing autographs or whatever the case is. But let's just say when it comes to like actually getting a brand deal, like an endorsement, like an NIL deal, right? One thing you would have to make sure is that it doesn't go against your school, right? You cannot have anything that goes against any relationships that your school has, right? So let's just say Michigan, for example, they're sponsored by Jordan.
Right.
But let's just say you are an athlete, and let's just say Adidas might want to sponsor you, right? Now, I don't know all the specifics, like as far as like the fine details, but you can't be repping Adidas and like being sponsored by Adidas basically at a school that is ran by Jordan sports-wise, right? Or at least you can't have your school gear on and stuff like that and anything NIL related, because then it's a conflict of, it's a conflict on each side. So whatever the NIL deal is, you have to make sure, of course, it's beneficial not only for you, but for your school as well.
Yeah.
Another thing is, oftentimes, right, when somebody's trying to offer you an NIL deal, they have a bit more money that they're willing to give you. So you want to make sure that the deal is fair for you as a whole, right? So like if th're saying, hey, I'll give you $2,000 and you don't think that's fair, they're generally lowballing you. So making sure that you have enough confidence to either realize when they're trying to skimp on you, or realizing when they have a bit more leeway and they're willing to give you a bit more money. And then the biggest thing is just making sure that whatever that brand deal is, it aligns with what your overall brand is. You don't want to, as you build a brand, you have core values, right? You don't want to get a brand deal that goes against one of your core values and then say in the long run, it kind of damages your image as a whole, right? So you just want to make sure that it aligns with you.
Who are some people that you think that these athletes should have on their team and managing their career?
Definitely some type of manager, right? Somebody who can so let's just say you're an athlete and there's a brand that you want to partner with, right? You want to have somebody who's able to reach out to that brand for you. Somebody just who can manage you as a whole, right? You want to make sure that you have a social media specialist, right? A social media manager, somebody, because let's be real, they're college athletes, so they're still in school. They still have work to do. They still have practice, training, all of these things. They still have a regular life. So the schedule can be pretty hectic. So making sure that they have a social media manager on their team. So, because like I said, you want to be able to post every day. So having somebody who's able to keep that consistency for them so they can build that brand. And then a PR agent, right? Just somebody who can help you with that overall image, like that public relations image from you to the world.
Yeah, because it's like you don't want to ruin the brand that you're trying to build.
Exactly.
So it's like you're trying to build the brand, and then they see you on the internet smoking some tweed, and now you're actually turning away potential sponsors. Like when you're building a brand, it's a combination of things. It's both good and avoiding the bad. So you got to put out the great stuff and advertise what you're doing, but you can't also show everything that you're doing.
Exactly.
So it's very interesting. Where am I going to go with this? Where do you think I should go with this?
How about this? I'll give one thing that, so like you said, when people say they should, when you ask me how often should college athletes post, right? And because you have a podcast, you know how easy this is, right? An easy way to post every day without actually having to make a different piece of content every day is starting a podcast.
Yeah.
Right? Because part of that, what that'll do is it'll also help you build your brand on multiple different platforms easier, right? And you'll be able to repurpose that content like crazy. So I actually learned this from somebody who does podcasts. I'm sure you know who he is, David Shands, right? So the repackage, repurpose, and it's essentially you just take that podcast, right? Let's just say you do an hour long. So I'm sure everybody can find an hour within their week to really just sit and do a podcast, give whatever as much value as you can, and just do that once a week. So you basically do that one podcast, and then you break up that podcast into multiple mini clips that you can post on a daily basis throughout your social platforms, right? So that gives you something to post every single day without actually having to worry about, okay, what am I going to make or what value can I bring or X, Y, and Z. So just make sure you have a podcast because then you can post it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, even LinkedIn in some ways. So it gives you a wide variety of the things that you're talking about at once while still just making one piece of content and being able to repackage and repurpose.
Yeah. And I would say when you're doing that, don't overthink the process because I sometimes overthink the process. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll record a podcast and the only micro clip I make is like the most fire clip from the show. And I think that there's value in every, the way I see it is like every single question and answer can be topped up into a mini clip. Like anytime that they're talking is a mini clip. And so you just got to put that out there and then let it fly. You never know what's going to go viral. I have pieces of content that have gone viral. I'm like, dang, I wasn't really feeling that like that.
Exactly.
But somebody gravitated toward it and they were just like, man, this is what I needed to hear today.
Exactly.
It's like, I guess sometimes we take for granted certain things that we know and we just assume everybody else knows it. And so we'll keep it in our pocket instead of sharing it with the world.
Exactly. Like, be diverse in what you're posting, right? Like, literally, you just said it. You might post something that goes crazy and be like, dang, I didn't think that this would have really went crazy. But if you didn't have the comfortable, if you weren't willing to explore a bit, right, and be comfortable enough just trying something new, you never would have known, okay, well, my audience actually really likes this or they really want this.
Yeah.
So when posting, right, especially when you're starting off, like trying to specialize on a brand for college athletes, you have to be able to branch out, do a whole bunch of different things because you don't know what will work. Of course, stay within your niche, whatever you're talking about. So say if you're a college athlete and you're also, majoring in physical health, right, or basically be a physical therapist, you can try to tie in what you do as a major and tie in how it relates to sports, but then kind of touch on a lot of topics in between and see what works to see what your audience most wants to see about, right?
Absolutely.
So let's just say, hypothetically, you're a basketball player and you also do physical therapy. You can say, you can do, of course, basketball drills. You can talk about how physical therapy plays a part in sports, or you can give specific routines or practices that any athlete could do, but let's just say specifically a basketball athlete can do that will prevent from them saying, reducing leg injuries and stuff like that. So you never really know what your audience wants to see until you try a lot of things and see what works.
You don't. And the same thing is true with your products, is you never know what product your customer wants until you release it. And so that's one thing that I found. And I never knew that it was a thing that translates industries. And so I have a pretty decent social media following, and people ask me well, how did you do it? And I guess it's just because I just tweet whatever. I post whatever. I'm never really like, oh, this has to fit an aesthetic and this has to blah, blah, blah. Of course, there's branding, there's certain colors that I try to keep on there, but like I'm going to share a bunch of stuff. Like if I see something, it's mostly stock market, real estate related. If I see something that's talking about interest rates, talking about a recession, talking about something, anything that's like stock market related, I'm sharing it. I'm putting it out there. And you never know what's going to pop.
Exactly.
You never know. You mentioned that you're a family business, but you also had a post. And if you wonder why I'm scrolling, like, let me see what I can ask him about on here.
Nah, you good.
So you said you love working with family. And a lot of people, they say, I won't work with family. I can't do that. But you have the opposite approach. Can you talk about that?
So I love working with my family for a few reasons. A couple big ones are we get on each other's nerves. And it honestly works out. And I say that out of love. But we get on each other's nerves so we know how to push each other without always making it seem like we're trying to attack them, right? Like, because sometimes with some family, it always might feel like you're attacking, right? But doing business with family, it helps work through, say, some of those things that, and we're not indifferent from other families, right? Sometimes we argue, sometimes we debate. We might get a little upset, but because we do business, it's helped us learn how to come back together and say, okay, I do see what you were saying, like taking the pride aspect out of it. Because I feel like a lot of times there's a lot of pride with families.
Or even outside of a family.
Exactly.
So if you're doing business with somebody who's not a part of your family and they come at you crazy, that might be the end of the relationship.
And not necessarily, because before I started working with my family, yes, I would have thought something like that. But one thing I've learned when working with my family is sometimes we put too much emotion into some of the decisions we make. So we think about it emotionally rather than logically, right? So that's helped me be a bit more objective while working with my family, because now I'm like, okay, if this was anybody else, if this was a regular person in the same situation, how would I feel about it? And I've started asking that question a lot more with not just my family, but people outside. Okay, if this happened, and say take all emotion out of it, like I have to kind of reconvene myself separately. Like if I took all emotion out of it, how would I really feel about this? Now, if I have the same answer, then okay, then that needs to happen. But if I'm able to say something different after I take the emotion out of it, I'm like, all right, so that's one thing I've definitely learned as far as working with my family, that it's like it helps me be a bit more objective. Another thing would be, man, we're able to bounce ideas off of each other all the time, right? Normally, family, we just talk about, if you're not doing business together, we talk about, how's your day, or what's going on, or yada, yada. Now it's like we talk business like basically 80% of the time, because it's 3 different people we're working with, right? So we're able to, everybody has a different mind. We're always able to bounce ideas.
Who's all involved in the family? It's you?
So it's my brother, my mother, and I. My stepdad's still there, but he's just more of our like support system.
Okay.
But he does help us as far as like the metaverse aspect and like the Web 3.0. But my brother is like the operations. I'm like the sales and marketing aspect. And then my mother, she deals with like the finances, just like the overall CEO.
Crazy thing is, all those things are so important, but a lot of times if you're not working with other people, it all falls on one person. You got one person trying to be operations, one person trying to be sales and marketing, one person trying to manage all the finances, and you're just going crazy. I'd be going crazy. Exactly. My business is like that. I do everything.
Look, as business owners, whether it's as a college athlete starting a business, whether it's a regular business owner starting a business, we feel as if we need to do everything. We need to learn everything and then do everything. No. My brother told me this, and it's amazing, right? A CEO knows a little bit about everything, but delegates it to the people who can do it best, right? And that's what we've been doing as a pair, right? After a while, of course, because it is 3 people and we're all still well-versed in a lot, we're able to get a lot more done. But after a while, it's like, okay, it's still only 3 of us. So that's what then kind of pushed us to hire virtual assistants to help like start scaling and automating our business. So like that, all right, learning to delegate is really what will help any business owner, no matter what field you're in, because you cannot do everything by yourself. You cannot learn all the finances, learn all the operations, learn all of this, and then start implementing everything by itself, right? Because a lot of these things are a job in itself. It takes 40, 50 hours a week from somebody doing it in order to get it done properly and efficiently. But if you're focusing on that, then other aspects of your business aren't getting situated.
And I think that scaling and delegating are what makes business business. Otherwise, we just created a job that we own. And so it's like if you're not leveraging other people, you're going to stunt your growth.
Exactly.
And so, like, I think that's the beauty of it is we always talk about, like, being an employee versus being a boss. But a lot of times, like, you're not really a boss or the opposite of an employee if you don't have employees. If you don't have other people that are out there doing the work for you, it's no different. You got to show up, you got to work, and if you don't work, you don't get paid. Sounds like a job to me. So, all right, I still want to find out more about why you like working with your family, because I have a lot of thoughts on that. I think that when you work with your family, specifically your spouse, I'm finding that there's a lot of trust. You don't have to look over your shoulder a lot of times, because what I find is, like, when you start doing business with strangers have their own objectives and their own motives for doing business with you. And a lot of times that if it works to your benefit, great. If it doesn't, oh well. And so I'm finding that, like, trust is a huge factor, but I've also found that, like, there's just a lot of really cool things. Like, you can tell your secrets. You can tell different things that you're really working on to your family, because now you can be more transparent.
Exactly.
If you're more transparent, you can come to a better solution instead of me just telling you half the stuff, and then you don't even know what I'm really thinking about, and so you can't give me true feedback on what I really want to do.
Because half the time they're giving feedback just based off the information that they have rather than all the pertinent details.
Why do you think people struggle with business, doing business with family, and do you think we can get out of that shell? How do we get out of that shell?
So why do people struggle with doing business with family, and how can we get out of that shell? People struggle doing business with family oftentimes because, like I said, there's a lot of emotion that can go into it. So even if somebody doesn't intentionally mean to do something that might, make you feel some type of way, oftentimes that's going to happen. And when it comes to family, right, we're either going to let it slide a little too much or we're not. And either way, it's going to be the extreme rather than being in the middle. So a way that we can start shelling out of kind of like some of those mistakes is to just start doing it, right? Like, you have to commit the mistake in order to know that it's a mistake. You have to, like, fail a bit, honestly, to learn that lesson so you know what to do and what not to do, right? Like, there are things that we have, not done the best on, and then there are things that we've soared on. But even the things that we haven't done the best on, those are learning experiences for us, right?
Right.
Because now we can say, hey, all right, I know that X, Y, and Z happened. It didn't happen properly, and we're not over here trying to attack you and say it's your fault. We're literally just saying, look, we understand that certain aspects of our business, right? So we're all good at something, right? And as we grow in business, especially with your family, everybody's going to have their specific role. But after a while, you're going to outgrow that role, and you need to know when to pass that off to somebody, right? But if you're by yourself, oftentimes you won't be able to know that. And when you're with family, they'll be able to tell you without you thinking that it's an attack on you. It's like, hey, we need to grow as a business, right? With family, you can sit down and have that real conversation with them so they can understand on a deeper basis.
Right. So do you think we can get to that point where we adopt family business as a lucrative objective? I guess I'd say that way.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it like this. Every major brand out there, it's not a brand, it's a family you're buying into. Walmart's the Walton family. And
they're
right?
big rich.
Actually, Sam's Club and Walmart is the same. Sam Walton is the one who created it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like Johnson & Johnson, those are all of these big name brands. Any big name brand basically you can think of is actually a really name. It's not some business name that they thought the name of and then it's like, oh, no, these are all. So, yeah, all of the major companies in the world are doing it. Why can't we?
Right. 100%. I'm finally getting my mom to get on track. We're definitely doing some things together, so that's kind of cool. Getting my dad on track too. Let's talk briefly about the actual business, though. Can you tell us about that company, why you guys started it, and how you're finding success in that space?
Most definitely. So our family business is called Social Currencies. We originally started it because my mother basically threatened us that if we didn't come together as a family business, like, she would kick us out the house. This was like
really?
Years ago. Yeah, very serious.
Yeah.
But it was a good thing, though. It wasn't like you do this or get out the house. It was like, this is something that will really change our lives. And if you're not willing to take that risk and take that next step into, like, financial freedom, then you're just going to have to get out of my house. That's kind of how she, like, laid it down. It wasn't like, do this or get out. You know what I'm saying? It was like she understood the value of it. And it all came from trading originally, right? So we were in a company called IML. I think it's called IM now, iMarkets Live or whatever. And we learned the aspect of just, like, trading, Forex, and then kind of got into stocks and crypto and all that. And it just kind of sent us down a rabbit hole of the more you learned in one aspect, you realize it connected to, say, like credit, right? And then it connects to real estate. And then it all connects somehow. So it's like we just started learning more and more and more and more. And then as the years went on and we learned so many different aspects of financial literacy, we're like, okay, we started off here, but now we ended up learning 3-4 other markets in a sense.
Yeah,
so how can we tie it all together?
It's all technical analysis at the end of the day.
Exactly. Like we learned Forex, then we learned crypto, then we learned stock options, and then now that got us into credit. Then that got us into how do you create digital products, and then how can you leverage it with social media, and then it's how can you do this, and then how can you diversify these assets, right? And then we're like, okay, instead of trying to sell all of these things separately, and because you're good at this, you're good at that, and you're good at that, how can we take all of this and put it into one? How can we put it all into a package and then plan it out step by step for somebody who would want to repeat the same process that we did? Yeah. So then
what did you guys create? What came out of that?
The social currencies business.
So social currency, what's your main core product?
We have a high ticket mentorship.
Okay.
Where we essentially do a process to where we help business owners, for one, build their personal credit, right? Then get personal and business funding. Then from there, we use that funding to, of course, go into your business. And then other levels of investments to where you can start, for one, having passive income while you're starting to work on your business.
That's kind of smart.
And then since that started, right, we ended up learning, okay, we got virtual assistants. When we first started social currencies, we didn't have any employees, didn't have any virtual assistants. And for those who don't know what virtual assistants are, they're literally that. They're a virtual assistant. They're people that you hire virtually to do jobs that can be done virtually, and they work either part-time or full-time, but we have about 20 full-time employees.
Damn.
Yeah, and then we also have a business that stemmed out of that, and where we help other businesses
get VAs.
Exactly. We find the talent for them. We hire it for that business owner.
And you get
train that VA.
You get a piece of their wages. So
No. They pay us to source the person.
Okay.
So we're not going to take any of their profits because that's still their profits. We're just going to make sure we hire that person that's good for your team for whatever position you need. Mm-hmm. And then even after that, we give like a 60-day money back guarantee to where. Not money back, but a 60-day guarantee to where if you don't like that virtual assistant, we'll replace it within 7 days for free. Mm-hmm. Because we want to make sure, like, you can't grow without understanding, like, what parts of your business need to expand. Mm-hmm. So you need that right person in that place to help it expand.
That's dope.
So it all just stemmed from, that one you got to learn this or get out to now we started a whole family business on helping multiple people do X, Y, and Z.
One of the things I think that's also true when you work as a family is you can experience accelerated growth. And it sounds like you guys did this relatively quickly because you have multiple people working on the same problem instead of one person working on the same problem. So then if you're not working, somebody else is working. If you're working and somebody else is working, now you're making double the time and double the effort. Mm-hmm. You guys experience that?
Most definitely, all the time. A part of what helped us learn how to allocate the time properly in doing so, because sometimes we'll get caught in, okay, all of us are doing the same thing. But if we're all doing the same thing, how are other things getting done? Yeah. So it turned into, okay, one thing we needed, and it may seem self-explanatory, but as you start a family business, and normally people start businesses by themselves, so they don't really think they need this. We have founders meetings every week. So every week we go through who needs to be working on what needs to get done, what needs to get paid, what needs to get allocated, any and everything that's related to the business that needs to happen, we talk about in that founders meeting. Yeah. Right? And of course we have many meetings throughout the week, but that big meeting is where we talk about all the important things, right? That like, okay, what are our goals for the week? This, that, and the third, because now it helps us move forward in a clear goal rather than everybody, like you said, everybody's good at something else, but sometimes we'll get caught doing the same thing. Yeah. And sometimes that's good depending on what that thing needs to be, but we need to talk about it and see if that's really the best course of action for that business.
Those meetings are important, and it seems like you have to still have the meeting even if you don't think you need the meeting. So it's like if it's a Monday, it's like, not much has changed. Like, should I really like have this meeting? It's like, nah, we still need to have the meeting, because if you don't have that meeting, you're going to fall behind. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't have that meeting, you might go 2-3 weeks without having a meeting.
Exactly.
So you got to still do the meeting, even if it seems redundant and repetitive, because maybe that's a sign that something needs to be changed or improved or kicked off the table.
Exactly. And it goes the same when it comes to, say, like, people who have a business and it's technically just them and their business, right? They need to create a board of advisors that they don't necessarily weigh in on business decisions, right? But it would be like a panel to where you can discuss ideas with, and they can give you advice on certain things, because there's only so much you can think of by yourself. You need people to bounce ideas off of, which is why I love the family business aspect so much, because then they can help you look at things in a different light. Yeah. That goes with college athletes when building their business or their brand. That goes with people who create podcasts. That goes with people who have a credit business, no matter who it is. Especially if you're businessing alone, like this is probably the biggest gem I want to give. Make sure you find a board of advisors, right? Yep. Just to advise you and bounce ideas off of. It's like that. Your network is your net worth, and it's the same thing when it comes to that.
That's so true. Very true. I got a few wrap-up questions. The first one I'm going to ask you is, what's your favorite business or investing book?
Think and Grow Rich, and I still haven't finished it yet, but just the things that No, I'm going to take that back. That's my second, but the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone.
Like that.
That one really opened up a lot for me, because it's like, okay, because oftentimes people think they're not doing the right thing, but really you're just not doing enough of it. So it's like just 10X what you're doing, and you'll see 10X the results. And it really, it seems so simple to say, and it really is that simple.
Yeah. I think that's the book that, set it off for me, too.
That one I'm getting goosebumps literally just thinking about it, because it really did, he would say things, and I'm just like, dang. One example was basically, it was something when he's talking about emails. He was like, apparently people were complaining about how many emails they're getting sent.
So he sent more.
He sent more, and he said it basically turns from irritation to admiration, and that's what kind of opened my eyes a bit.
Yeah, 100% I do. I think that's an important book for people to read, because I think that it's like, you're right. They think they're doing the wrong thing, but they're just not doing enough of it. And so if you did more of it, then you see the results that you were seeking. And sometimes you just got to break through the noise of everybody else's posting. So if you post once a day and everybody else is posting once a day, you're not going to get seen. But if you post 10 times a day and they're posting once a day, now you're rising above the...
You're really about to get seen.
Yeah. What sets apart successful business owners from those who give up, fail, and never get started?
Honestly, just never quitting, right? I always like to tell people this. This might be a little deep for some people to understand, but time technically doesn't exist, right? So if you think in your mind that you're going to get something done, then your mind won't stop thinking that until it gets done, right? Take away the time aspect, whether it gets done in a minute, whether it gets done in a year, 5 years, 10 years. In your mind, if you say, this is done, this is what I'm going to do, it's going to happen. Yeah. So you just have to take out that time aspect and enjoy the journey along the process, because if you never quit, then technically you never fail.
That's a bar. That's so true. What does wealth mean to you?
Wealth to me is having the freedom to do the things you want to do when you want to do it with the people you want to do it with. Yeah. Right? It's just ultimate freedom, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you got to make a certain dollar amount. Some people's wealth is being with family. Some people's wealth is having all the nice, finer things. Some people's wealth is, having physical, just being in nature. It just depends. But my wealth is just doing the things you want to do with the people you want to do it when you want to do it.
So before I do the final question, what is one thing you want to leave with the people before you leave us?
The tallest trees have the deepest roots. So in order to shine and grow outwardly, you need to make sure you're doing a lot of the internal work that needs to be done.
Dope, man. Where can they find you? Where can they follow you? And where can they support what you have going on?
You can follow me on Instagram at alex.n as in November.Turner, so alex.n.Turner. You can also find my my YouTube channels at Sports Talk with Turner and Athlete's Wisdom. That's a new podcast that I'm bringing up. And Sports Talk with Turner on Instagram as well.
Nice. You come in here to the plug to record those episodes?
No, we actually created a podcast studio in our basement.
That's dope. That's real dope. Man, shout out to families. I didn't think it was going to turn into a family business conversation, but I'm really, really, really big on family business. Sometimes it's hard getting people on board. Probably could have asked you that question. But they're doing it, and they're an example that it can be done. So shout out to that. Shout out to what they're doing. Make sure you guys follow and support them. Make sure you guys also support all the courses at Todd Capital. Click the link in the show notes for my information as well as his information, and we're going to continue to rock this thing out. So thanks for checking us out, and we'll see you in the next one.